Was Backlash France the greatest WWE crowd ever? It's very close. Plus, we now know where WrestleMania 41 will be in 2025. And we got first round matchups of the King and Queen of the Ring from last night on Raw, including Gunther versus Sheamus Part 3. So let's stop delaying. Let's get into it. Let's go.
Welcome to WrestleMania, the podcast. I'm Dylan Shields. We talk Raw, SmackDown, wrestling news, and some fun top lists. With that being said, ring the bell.
Welcome to episode number 9 of WrestleMania, the podcast. We're one away from double digits here. And there is no TV in the background this time because I realize that's too much work to do that. And my TV is not normally there. So it's back to normal with just the World Heavyweight title, the OG one back there. And yeah, it's been a crazy week of wrestling. I know there's always the post WrestleMania lull of like a lot of superstars injured or leaving, a lot of big time guys like Roman, Seth, and Rock gone. So obviously WWE kind of suffers for that, but obviously last week we talked about the disappointing draft, but it seems like ever since Backlash France and with a lot of news I'm going to discuss here, WWE is still talked about a lot despite it being post WrestleMania season now. But yeah, it's insane. Let's get this banner going because the past 2 episodes I realized my dumbass forgot to have the banner here. I always like having that for you guys to read while you guys are listening or watching. Let's get the PowerPoint going here. Alrighty here. Like mentioned, Backlash France. I mean, before we talk about the matches, holy shit, what a crowd, man. And obviously we knew last year Backlash was in Puerto Rico and they had an amazing crowd itself, from especially from the Bad Bunny, Damian Priest match, and all the Puerto Rican wrestlers appearing like Carlito and such, which was just amazing. The crowd was white hot there. I feel like this might have topped it, man. In terms of watching live, for me, this might have been the loudest crowd I've ever heard. And that's including like this year's Mania, other WrestleManias, other big time pay-per-views. It seems to be the tradition of WWE. It seems like because they know Backlash is kind of like an pay-per-view when it comes to a card, because they know a lot of big time guys aren't going to be there. Punk's not there. Roman, Seth aren't there. But they had a decent card, but they know it's that post WrestleMania kind of like not dud, but like lull, I guess, like I mentioned earlier, where the interest kind of goes down a little, and that's natural. So they want to get pay-per-views like Backlash that aren't too meaningful in the grand scheme of things to crowds like this, so it can be more meaningful, because the star of the whole show was the crowd. That crowd made that show. I mean, the wrestlers did themselves a good job, but the crowd made it that much better. And that's how you elevate pay-per-views. And I'm very excited for these next few because Bash at Berlin's going to be in Germany. I am excited for that. Clash at the Castle is going to be at Scotland, Drew McIntyre's home country. Money in the Bank in Toronto. SummerSlam's the only pay-per-view coming up that's in the U.S. And the U.S. crowds are kind of suck right now. I mean, WrestleMania 49 too, they were amazing. But compared to France and compared to Puerto Rico and London at Money in the Bank last year, U.S. crowds got some work to do. These American crowds, I think, are kind of spoiled and kind of oversaturated because they get all the shows. So they can be a bit spoiled, take stuff for granted. I feel like people say like, oh, you should come back to this place, like you should go back to France. I feel like the less often they appear at these countries, the better when they show up they are, because they're not spoiled and they don't take it for granted, because they rarely appear in France. I think it's the first ever pay-per-view event in France, and it certainly showed for them. During the show itself, there was some Uncle Howdy QR codes shown, and on Raw, there was a QR code here. And my friend Dylan, who went to WrestleMania with Matt and Troy, sent me, because there was a phone number shown presented that you call, and it had like a little ominous, creepy voicemail, and I'm gonna hopefully you guys can hear it. I will present it to you guys right here. It's about 40 seconds.
Do you know the story of the shepherd and the lost sheep? The shepherd left the 99 others to search for the one sheep that had gone missing. He rejoiced when he found it. But what happened when my precious sheep went missing? None of you cared. Their families didn't care. Their friends didn't care. You let the darkness take them. Left them shackled in hell all alone. But I set them free. They are my family now. And we will do anything to protect our family. I can't wait for you to see what they've become. It's beautiful.
All right, so that was the voicemail there, and it was a bit like it was hard to tell exactly what they were saying, and I'm not the best with signs and stuff of QR codes. Like for the Wyatt stuff, I had to look up what exactly codes and shit meant because I'm just bad at reading that stuff. Shepherd was mentioned in that voicemail, the word, and apparently that kind of symbolizes Eric Rowan, and apparently he re-signed with WWE. And at the end of the Bray Wyatt documentary, Bo Dallas, who played Uncle Howdy and still does, said like this is not over yet. Like this isn't the end of the story. So and it seems obviously that it's teasing. Apparently, when Bray Wyatt came back in 2022, they were teasing the Wyatt Six. And apparently, I think they're still going to go with that. I think they have like letters or some type of symbol of like who to symbolize who's going to be in the faction. And there's like a lot of controversy saying like, oh, just keep the Wyatt character as it is. Like, don't disrespect his legacy. Like, don't try to like copy it or whatever. But I don't mind them doing this, especially with if the people that are rumored. Let me show you who's rumored. Obviously, Bo Dallas is Uncle Howdy. Nikki Cross is apparently rumored. Dexter Loomis, Joe Gacy from NXT, who has like a Wyatt type character, and Eric Rowan. And these guys are kind of underutilized right now. Especially, I mean, Nikki Cross, I don't think we've seen in a while. Loomis, we haven't seen. Like a lot of these guys we haven't seen. And when they were in WWE, they have been underutilized, maybe with the exception of Gacy. But I understand the argument of like keep Wyatt's character in remembrance, don't like try to copy it. But I think they want to do this to honor Bray, and I feel like Bray would want Bo Dallas to do this. And if this could change Dallas's career, I'm all for it. And the crowd's gonna love it, obviously, because of honoring Wyatt. And this would be a hell of a faction, the Wyatt Six, and this can give underutilized talent a chance to shine. And so I'm all for it. I'm all for trying to keep, because without Bray Wyatt, there hasn't been a lot of dark, scary characters. I mean, the Judgment Day, but they're kind of like comedy. They're not like back when Edge was starting and they tried to be like an Undertaker type faction. So I feel like they need something like this. Like wrestling always has like great darkness characters, and it's kind of been lacking at WWE recently. So I don't mind them doing this. So I hope they keep it up. Apparently, I think they might show up at Queen and King of the Ring pay-per-view. Maybe. We'll see. But let's get into Backlash itself. Opening match with KO and Orton versus the Bloodline. And they didn't waste any time. They just immediately started brawling. And Nick Aldis, who took the trip to France just to say, by the way, this is a no disqualification match. Well worth that trip to cut a 30-second promo. But before all of that, KO and Orton had some of the best reactions ever. They were singing Orton's theme song. I'm not sure I've ever heard that before. Fans singing a song. That was that's when you knew this France crowd was killing it. And it was a good brawl, as always. The very end, KO giving a brain buster to Tonga through the chairs, which was freaking awesome. He goes for the cover, but someone pulls him out of the ring. A lot of people, including myself, was thinking Fatu, but no. It's It's Tonga Loa, Tama Tonga's brother. And apparently, I think they were like a tag team in New Japan. I'm pretty sure. I forgot what they were called. And he actually used to be, I think, Camacho in WWE. He was kind of like a jobber type character. He was like a muscle for somebody. I didn't watch at the time, but when I heard that he used to be that, I'm like, oh, I memorized that. And obviously, he, like Tonga, they made names for themselves in New Japan. And both both of them are Haku's sons. So it seems like this rogue bloodline, which maybe seems like Solo's the tribal chief, or at least running things at the moment, is very awesome. And Solo gets the pin over KO. They needed this. Solo hasn't won a match since John Cena, so about damn time he gets a win here at Backlash. And it was probably the second best match to me of the night, because I love that they changed it to no DQ. It made sense with the story, with KO bleeding and everything. It made sense that it was more like a brawl type match. It was just chaos everywhere, and the crowd was into every single thing. Paul Heyman's facial expressions tell the story. Like, if you don't like, the picture here that's shown is like amazing. Like, Heyman's kind of held hostage by this new bloodline. Like, he's still holding up the one, but he wants no part of it. And even they showed Jay backstage before his match with Priest, and Heyman kind of had this look to Jay of like, please help me. I disapprove of this. Please help me get out of this. Which, again, feel like we're gonna eventually get OG bloodline versus the new bloodline. I know people are saying Solo's the tribal chief for this, and that would be cool, but I really want it to be The Rock, because I feel like this bloodline needs like a big time guy. Because, no disrespect to Solo, but he's not on the level of Roman Reigns in terms of a tribal chief. So if they're going to have the OG bloodline with Roman and the Usos and maybe even Sammy, who are big stars, I feel like this new bloodline needs a guy like The Rock to establish it even more. Everyone's saying War Games. I don't know if I don't know if The Rock's Dwayne Johnson wants to do that, considering his schedule, but we'll see. Triple threat between Bayley, Stratton, and Naomi was a pretty decent match. Nothing spectacular. Nothing you'd really go back to see specific stuff. I think Stratton dominated most of it. Clunky at times, but overall pretty good. And a predictable finish. Bayley, Naomi exchanging roll-ups, and Bayley eventually retaining. I mean, obviously, it was just too early for Stratton to win, especially early in the Bayley's reign. And Naomi was there just to take the pin for Bayley. But Stratton still shined in that match, and she's definitely a future women's champion. I'd like to see her win Queen of the Ring. I don't know if she's in it or if she's announced to be in it, but if she is, I'd love to see her win it. And Bayley and Naomi exchanging hugs afterwards. I was hoping a Naomi heel turn would happen, but nope, didn't happen. Good little match. Jay versus Damian Priest for the world title. First of all, Jay's entrance was probably the best of that pay-per-view. Him just like popping out in like the middle of like the stands there was amazing. I feel like half that section of the crowd was like, wait, Jay's there? That was weird. And they had like the flashlights on. I think they were honoring Bray or something, or maybe they just did that. And they were all doing this with Jay's theme. Was freaking amazing. And they had a good little match. It wasn't absolutely incredible. It didn't like kick into like the highest gear. I think Jay and Damian with their styles can only do so much with the match, but it was still a good match. What I loved about it was just how fresh of a world title match this felt, because we're so used to guys like Seth and Drew, and then eventually Punk, Roman, like all these guys are like the world title guys. It feels good to see two different. Obviously, we've seen Jay in title matches against Roman, but he still kind of feels new in the main event scene, and Damian as well. So that felt like it was like a feel good thing to see these two like compete for a title match. I guess since Roman's title reign is over, we got to have some champion that has their faction help them win, because Jay was going for the win and JD McDonough put his foot on the rope and screwed him over. And then Damian won with South of Heaven for the second rope. What interested me was the end of the match when they were attacking Jey Uso and Damian shoved them off, being like, hey guys, he's done. That's enough. which was interesting. I know they've been teasing a Damian Priest face turn for a while. It's interesting that they're teasing that while he's champion, because he's still a heel champion, but he's probably eventually going to break apart from the Judgment Day. Makes me think, are they going to have Priest a babyface? Because I still feel like him and Drew is the match for Clash at the Castle. Are they going to have him be a good guy, even though he's probably going to be booed out the building at Clash at the Castle because Drew's the man? Who knows? Who knows? But very interesting stuff in the Judgment Day, kind of teasing like a bloodline type breakup from them. And they've been teasing it for a while. Bianca and Jade winning the women's tag team titles against the Kabuki Warriors. I was texting my friends this. I kind of overreact to stuff when I watch a match. There was a really clunky few moments of this match. And I don't know if Jade got the wind knocked out of her, because there was like a few botched spots, and then for some reason I think someone was pinning Jade and the ref's like, no, you're not legal. But then like apparently she was, because then Asuka like got tagged in. I'm like, wait a second, you said she wasn't legal, and then Asuka got tagged in. Like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Like, that was so clunky. I think, like, I love Jade, but I think I could tell she gives me Goldberg vibes. That's no disrespect to Jade. I feel like she's kind of like Goldberg in a sense where she can only wrestle a limited amount of minutes in matches, and then she kind of gets exposed in a way, kind of like Goldberg does, where they both get tired after a certain amount of minutes, and then it just doesn't look good. Like, we've seen Goldberg exposed by WWE style. And that's why I feel like they're having Cargill do tag stuff like at WrestleMania now, because they still want to get her truly ready. Because in AEW, you kind of saw how short her matches were and how dominant she just was. Like, she doesn't sell that much. I feel like that's the case here, and that's why when she's in a ring for that long, she can have clunky moments like there was in this match. But I think I was kind of too hard on it at the time, because they what more than made up for it. I was impressed by how they got back on their feet and everything. The finish was amazing of Jade and her power moves. Like, it just slowly get to her finishing move. The crowd just dig that. And Bianca and Jade win the tag titles. Obviously the right decision here. Hopefully they can have a dominant reign, and it can lead to a future match, not immediately, maybe next WrestleMania between Bianca and Jade Cargill, and we can finally start Jade's singles push. But I want them to legitimize these titles again, because they just haven't. Like, it's been so forgettable. So I'd like to see them be dominant champions for a while, but actually defend it consistently. Considering they're both big stars, hopefully we'll get that. The main event, Cody Rhodes versus AJ Styles, and what I think was the match of the night, and I think it was expected to be. The opening match gives it a run for its money, but I feel like Cody Styles quality-wise was so good. And back to the crowd, they were chanting some of the weirdest stuff. Apparently they were chanting, I don't know exactly what the term is, but every time when Styles came out, and then every time he's on offense, they were chanting like something phenomenal or something, phenomenal one chant or something, and the crowd just got up and kept jumping, and the place was shaking when they did that. It was so loud that they apparently got on the SmackDown before, they got warnings from like the government or something of them being too loud. They were that intense. So it was weird. They were chanting that. It was weird that they were chanting like a phenomenal one chant, even though they were cheering for Cody most of the match. And then this one, I hate to criticize this crowd because they could do what they want, but it kind of did annoy me a little bit. Every 2 count, they kept chanting something. I think it was simple as like a 2 count chant or something in French. I don't exactly know, but it kind of like took it out of me as a viewer. And that's no disrespect to the crowd. They can do whatever they want. I mean, listen, they don't get a lot of shows, but I'm just saying as a viewer, it kind of annoyed me a little bit because I think there were moments where they were just trying to make it about themselves and not about the match. And I wish they could just actually focus on the match. And eventually they stopped and got to the match. But I'm just like, do you guys have to do this after every kick out? chant this. It was to the point where I was hoping we didn't get any covers because every time someone kicked out, I'm like, here we go again with this chant. Like, it got old by the main event. Like, it kind of got a little bit annoying. Like, compared to Puerto Rico, where they weren't chanting that stuff and they were just actually paying attention to the action, I feel like the France crowd just tried to take over a little bit compared to the Puerto Rico crowd. But I still enjoyed their crowd a lot. And they paid their ticket. They earned their right. Just as a viewer, I can see why it can get a bit tiresome. But in terms of the match itself, it's Cody Styles. Of course they're going to deliver. It wasn't even about the possibility of Styles winning because we knew that wasn't going to happen. It was just about Cody having a first good title defense against a legit guy. And it was awesome. The back and forth exchanges were incredible. Cody kicking out at one of like a vertebreaker. That's like a WrestleMania type kick out, and Cody does it in France. So that's freaking awesome. I love the moment when Cody and Styles were yelling at the corner and then going at it. Like, it was just freaking awesome between Cody and Styles. Styles never hit any of his finishers, which is interesting. I feel like we're trying to protect finishing moves again, which I love because Cody won the match. He hit like a big Cody cutter and won with only one crossroads. So I feel like I enjoy that they're trying to protect finishing moves because I feel like that's been a bit lost and finisher kickouts are too common. So I appreciate that. I wouldn't mind another match between these two, honestly. They only had 2 weeks to hype this up. I feel like at Queen and King of the Ring, we should get one more match between them, get a few weeks of build, and then have one more match. Maybe they can have a stipulation or something to freshen it up, or maybe add LA Knight or something, although I think he's in the King of the Ring. But yeah, great main event. And like I said before, it was a good pay-per-view that elevated to great because of the crowd. And I want to see where Backlash goes next year. I really do. What's next for Backlash? I mean, I heard there was rumors of Italy, possibly. I know WWE live shows in Chile are so freaking loud too. So yeah, exciting stuff. Ring discoveries here. Obviously the big one. And this was announced at the Kentucky Derby. I think Triple H appeared there and announced that WrestleMania 41 is heading to Viva Las Vegas. Apparently, them in Minnesota were the front runners, and Minnesota kind of lost out to Vegas. I think kind of rightfully so, because I think because of how cold Philly was, I don't think the WWE production team wanted any part of that 2 years in a row. They're like, we're going somewhere warm this year, so let's go to Vegas. I'm still hoping Minnesota gets a Mania because they deserve it. They've never had one, but I mean, Vegas, and it's also April 19th and the 20th. So, you know, WrestleMania on 420 in Vegas. That's going to be a wild night there for people. So, yeah, that'll obviously be very exciting. It's interesting how late in April this is. Apparently, and the 20th is also Easter. So to have that on a holiday is very interesting. That's going to be a wild day for me personally. But I don't care. I'm all for it here for WrestleMania. And yeah, Allegiant Stadium's a great stadium to host it. Speaking of the Kentucky Derby, Seth Rollins has a brand new look. This is like a fun type of ring discovery news. If you don't see it, for those that are listening, he pretty much not completely shaved his beard, but it's similar to what I do when my beard gets long, just like shave most of it, but it's still like just short hairs. I mean, the guy probably got so sick of his look that or got tired of taking care of his beard. He's just like, screw it, I'm shaving it. And obviously because it's the Kentucky Derby, they kind of wear like old school exotic type fashion. That's right up Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch's alley. So Seth kind of looked old school there. People were saying, is he bald? Like, dude, that's definitely like a man bun, like a big man bun in there. There's no way if Seth shaved his head completely, then I don't know when we're going to see him on WWE TV again, but yeah, a fun new look for him. We got to talk about the Drew Gulak controversy here. First I'll discuss him in general and then talk about what Triple H said at the press conference. I'm going to pull out my phone because it has some of this. So apparently there was a lot of stuff. It started with Ronda Rousey, I think on her podcast, discussing Gulak and his inappropriate behavior backstage. He accused him of grabbing her sweatpants string backstage back when Ronda was part of WWE. And on top of her making these claims, apparently this guy has been bullying NXT people for a while now. Like, apparently Gulak kind of, I guess they say like he's a bit too real in the ring, or he tries to injure people or test new people out. Like, apparently, I have on my phone, one talent claimed that he tried to re-dislocate one of their fingers, and another said he would try to intimidate colleagues while into not reporting these incidents, which is just so weird. I think Gulak responded, but I haven't seen his quote yet. But if these rumors are true, then what a piece of shit this guy is. I mean, again, with this old school stuff, I've said this about Punk before. If that's like his excuse, like, oh, I'm old school, this is just how, like, no, dude, you don't treat your talent like that. You don't fucking try to re-injure people and stuff just to test people out. That's not how it works. And then Triple H on the Backlash France post conference, he kind of called out some of these media channels that WWE had about if he was released or not. Apparently, Triple H said he's not released, and he kind of called out a few like wrestling like news websites. I think like the Observer was one of them. I forgot what the other one was called, but yeah, apparently he basically called them out, saying like they were false rumors and stuff. And I saw this. There's a famous wrestling YouTuber named Wrestling with Regret, Brian Zane, who I think had a really good take on this. And I've discussed this about Tony Khan and him not doing press conferences well either. I think Triple H has also work to do on how to be formal and be professional at press conferences, because when he's not getting, it seems like this guy only wants to get asked questions about how great WWE is. Like, dude, not everyone's gonna kiss your ass when they ask you questions and tell you how great you are. We get how great you are and how great your business is doing. When you're doing these press conferences and allowing people like the newsletter and Observer to come in, they're going to ask these questions because they are on the news and these are important. Like, if what Gulak is doing is true, then he should be gone, because he shouldn't be treated like that. He sure shouldn't be treating women like Ronda like that. That's just disgusting and disrespectful. And then to be treating talent like that is horrible too. But I get maybe if he's still with WWE, and like Triple H could have just said that, but the fact that he kind of just trashed these news reporters, I think it was like Sean Ross and Fightful or whatever it's called too. He just like, it doesn't make him look good. And if him and Tony Khan don't want to be asked these hard hitting questions that don't like and involve kissing the company's ass and just asking positive questions, then don't do these. Like, these were just recently a thing, these press conferences, to make it feel more real or sports like. Don't do them if you don't want to be asked these questions, because no shit, they're going to give you the hard hitting questions. That's what people want to hear. They don't want to hear the same old stuff about how your buy rates have been and everything and the attendance stuff. Like, that stuff's all cool, but they're going to ask you the hard hitting shit. And if you don't want to hear it, then don't do it. And as much as I've given AEW a lot of grief for doing it, and Tony Khan, Triple H has just as much to blame and needs to be better at answering report questions. So I hope maybe he can apologize for it, or like, hopefully we won't hear that from him again. I understand the wrestling community. Sometimes I kind of crap on some like online rumors and journalists that claim to be journalists. But the guys that Triple H were like accusing of lying and being false, those are some of the best and most reliable sources. Like the Observer is one of the best and one of the more reliable to get your wrestling news. So to do that and completely undermine them and maybe get people and convince people to not trust them anymore is disrespectful to them and the work that they do. Like, it sucks how negative the online wrestling community is, but there are some professional, positive type news who just want to get the news out there, but get the truth out there. So when Triple H is saying stuff like that, it's just ridiculous, and it just seems so old school to me. Just because guys like him and Tony Khan are just anti-online people, yeah, they've got work to do. Asuka was apparently injured. She's been injured, I think, since like March. So it makes sense once they lost the tag titles that she got injured and Dakota Kai replaced her in the tournament. And then Drew got pulled from King of the Ring. I think this is more storyline based because we've known Drew has been injured for a while with the hyperextended elbow. I think this just fuels the story of Drew's rage even more. One more funny discovery. CM Punk apparently last weekend was locked in the WWE headquarters and got lost. And he got locked in their bathroom. And he was posting a bunch of stories of him commenting on it and just showing a lot of decorations and stuff. That is just hilarious, man. Punk's Instagram is already kind of like interesting enough with what he posts. That is just so funny. And then on Raw, apparently, like he joked about like having a long weekend and stuff because Raw was in Connecticut. That is just so funny I feel bad for both that happened to, but that's just also funny. But hey, if you're gonna get locked in a very well ran headquarters. So let's dive in. I can't talk tonight, sorry. Let's dive into some raw rundown here. There was one part that I didn't like what WWE did. They announced 8 matchups that were apparently going to happen on Raw. But I guess because of time constraints or something, or maybe because of what Punk did, they pulled it to 6 because Kofi and Ray got moved. And I think Shayna Baszler against somebody is now at a random live show. And good for whatever live show that is. That crowd's going to get like an important match. But why are you announcing that 8 matchups are going to happen and they'd be like, oh, actually, we got 6. Just do 6 in the first place because 8 matchups on a 3-hour, even on a 3-hour show was going to be a lot for fans. Should have just had 6 in the first place. So just makes no sense. Jay was the one that replaced Drew and beat Finn Balor to advance. Drew tried to cost Jay, or he just came out, but didn't work. Again, I think this was storyline from the beginning, just getting Drew more pissed off. And speaking of Drew, he got mad at Adam Pearce and then left the building. And right as his car leaves in frame, here comes CM Punk in his car. Just awesome troll storytelling. And also that's when another Uncle Howdy QR code popped up. And I saw that video too. If you're creeped out, don't watch it. But if you're a fan of that, I recommend watching that QR code video. But anyway, yeah, Punk then was like, Pierce is like, you're late. And Pierce is like, Drew was literally just here. And Punk's like, are you kidding me? And then I love when WWE does this. It seems like they're doing it now. The camera stays on Punk all the way till he walks out to the ring. Punk trolled one of like the female reporters who's apparently a Maple Leafs fan because the Maple Leafs lost and choked, and Punk is just shitting on her. So I feel bad for her. Obviously, Punk's a big hockey fan. Him and Chad Gable shook hands, which is very interesting. That's pretty cool to see that. But Punk, as always, cutting an amazing promo on Drew. He basically said, I'm going to take a little more time than the last week when I cut a promo in less time than Drew was champion. So that was hilarious. And Punk definitely has seen the Drake and Kendrick Lamar beef because he kind of says I think a line from one of Kendrick's raps. I forgot exactly what it is, but like you hate the way I talk, you hate the way I dress and that stuff. Like that's what Punk said. I think what interested me the most was afterwards, because after he was talking on the mic, he talked right into the camera and be like, I'll be hiding in Glasgow, Scotland if you're there, which makes me think, is Punk going to be cleared by Clash at the Castle? And I still think Damien's going to be champion by then. I'm thinking, is there going to be a triple threat between Punk, Drew, and Damien for the title? Or is Drew Damien going to happen and Punk tries to screw him? I would be very interested to see Punk get booed out of the building in Scotland because, again, Drew's their boy. So, again, it's crazy how two injured guys are the best thing in WWE right now, the best feud right now. It's good but sad at the same time because I'm really hoping they could be healthy enough for Clash of the Castle and SummerSlam, because that is a must match. That's a must that needs to happen, is that match. Already might be feud of the year for just wrestling in general, Punk and Drew. In terms of a match that stole the show, Ricochet versus Dragunov was absolutely incredible. And Dragunov's had a lot of hype. He was NXT champ for a while. He dethroned Gunther's NXT UK reign. But man, like, I knew Dragunov was going to win, but wow. I mean, with his hard-hitting style and Ricochet's acrobatics, that is just great chemistry between them. And I know Gunther Sheamus 3 happened and they always have good matches, but I think this might have topped it. This might have been the best match of the night, honestly. And they shook hands afterwards. I mean, just watch the match. I mean, I can't even talk just because I can't explain how amazing this was. Like, go back and watch it. It was incredible. Io Sky and Natalya had a pretty decent match as well. And Io Sky advanced, no shock there. Sky's just one of the best wrestlers. I feel like she's going to advance pretty far. I don't know if she's going to win it all, but there's a possibility. Trying to think who else. I'm so bad with names. I think Ibra Fry, is that her name? She's like an Irish NXT wrestler. She beat Becky Lynch for the NXT title last fall. I'm so bad with these new names. But she advanced. Zoe Starks advanced in a decent match as well. I wish Zoe Stark can have a little more personality, because her with Trish was pretty good, but ever since, I don't think the crowd's into her. But she has potential, so who knows? And then obviously Gunther versus Sheamus 3 never disappoints. Like I said, I think Ricochet Dragunov topped it, but this was still great. A great match. Poor Sheamus. His freaking chest was red again. It looked like after the Clash at the Castle match they had. Poor Sheamus is just killing himself out there when he wrestles Gunther every time. Just great back and forth. Gunther just beating the hell and chopping out of Sheamus, but Sheamus defiant as ever, fighting back. I think he hit a bro kick at one point. Gunther kicked out. So, yeah, very interesting there. And Gunther, the thing I love about Gunther is he can beat you in many ways. He's not like Roman where he needs the bloodline or any faction to cheat. Gunther just beats the hell out of you and wins by himself. And he was attacking Sheamus's leg because I think Kaiser did kind of cheat. He attacked Sheamus's leg, but Gunther took advantage and had a one-leg Boston Crab, and Sheamus tapped out. Like, Gunther could beat you with a power bomb, that clothesline, or like a submission. Like, that's just how good Gunther is. It's how unpredictable he is. That's why he's one of the best wrestlers right now. Not just in WWE, but the world. Poor Sheamus is 0-3 against Gunther. If they face off again, I think you eventually got to give Sheamus a win over Gunther. But, I mean, the women's side, I feel like, is a little more unpredictable of who I want to win because we don't know who's on the SmackDown side. The men's, even with whoever's on SmackDown that's going to be in it, it's got to be Gunther. I know, like, LA Knight would be intriguing, or Jay or Dragunov even. As much as I love Jay, I think it's Jay Dragunov in the second round. I want Dragunov to win. I need a Dragunov Gunther rematch stat. I need Dragunov Gunther part 3. But it's got to be Gunther, 100%. after WrestleMania, him losing to Sammy, Gunther should not lose for a while, for a long time. And finally, we have some matches announced for Saudi Arabia. So Gable versus Bronson Reed. I knew this was going to happen. Sammy attacked both of them, but Bronson Reed stood tall at the end. Triple threat match is announced for that pay-per-view. Makes sense because Sammy's a pretty big star. And I think he has like Saudi Arabian blood or something, so that he's like a big deal there. So yeah, that'll be a fun match. And also Liv and Becky had a little bit of a segment on Raw, and that match is announced for Saudi Arabia. Both those matches, I don't know what's going to happen because it's kind of unpredictable. Because I could see for both matches anybody besides Bronson Reed. No disrespect to him, I don't think he's winning the Intercontinental title, but I could see Gable winning. I could see Sammy retaining, and I could see Becky retaining, but I could also see Liv winning the title. So already looking like a pretty good pay-per-view, which is coming up at the end of the month. I think the 28th, I believe. But yeah, that was a lot to talk about there. And you can see I got a little tongue-tied a lot of moments here during this podcast. I need people, man. I need to talk to people. Definitely these next few episodes in these coming weeks, I want to get people on. Obviously, Troy and Matt, the usuals, but I want to get some other friends that are wrestling fans on here as well, because I feel like that'd be pretty cool and intriguing to get new people and new eyes, and I can maybe even interview even more people. But obviously, this is always fun to do. But that's going to be it for episode number 9 here. Obviously, we will be right back here next week at 7 p.m. to talk even more. It'll probably be a little bit less just because the next pay-per-view is the 28th. But yeah, and obviously, if you couldn't, obviously rewatch this on YouTube if you want. If not, then tune in on Spotify. And if you want to just listen to it, listen on Spotify. I love listening to podcasts, falling asleep. I know a lot of people do. Oh, and if you want to check out my website, go to WrestleMan with a podcast.blog to check out that. And I hope you guys have a wonderful week here. I think it's around finals week for a lot of colleges, or finals were over. It was over for us at Millersville, at least. But if you have finals or are getting right into the summer and are too stressed, you guys got this. Stay calm, stay loose. And this podcast is always a way to get you guys going. But have a good week, guys, and I'll see you right back here next week at 7 p.m.